And I still, to be clear, I still am really pissed off about everything. I think voting is more important because I would rather change who's behind the door. Don't let them persuade you into thinking that it's hopeless. Don't let them just don't let them have control over like the way that you think and feel.
This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And also, I want to say we have to stop cannibalizing each other
Oh
by
yeah.
tearing down, you're not doing enough, you're not doing what I'm doing, you're not doing whatever. Every piece matters in that 3.5%. I'm not political. I have to tell you, that burns me up so bad. You're oblivious if you don't realize that literally every single thing that is in your life is governed by politics. For you to say that you're not political is ignorant. And by making a choice to not be political, you're screaming your privilege. And essentially, you are absconding from your responsibility to care for your communities. I think this leads into perhaps the conversation about when you say that you're not political, what I think you're saying is, I don't care. I
Yeah.
don't care. I don't care what happens to you. I don't care what happens to that
Someone else.
single mom
Yeah.
trying to go back to school on welfare. I mean, basically, I think it's just saying, fuck those people. So my calling is to disrupt information. I am disrupting misinformation. Combating disinformation and misinformation is a form of resistance. If you think that billionaire and a felon millionaire care one whit about you, your family, your livelihood, your health, your welfare, your mental health, your family's mental health, your income, your future, you are delusional.
Yeah.
You are brainwashed if you believe that. Okay. Well, hello and welcome to yet another episode of Hopeful Resistance. My name is Sarah and this is my son Aaron. And
Hi.
we are here to invite you to join in on listening to our discussion about hopeful resistance and what that is and all sorts of other little things. Aaron?
All the rabbit holes.
Yeah, all the rabbit holes. You are the one who gets to decide where we start and what is the topic for today.
I know we want to talk about people who tend to think that they aren't political. What kind of that mentality? Finding your why. We had that big talk
We
this week. It
should
was really
start with
exciting.
finding the why, because that was
Yeah,
hard for you.
it was really exciting. And then just going back through action items, things that you can do as a part of that hopeful resistance move. And then as always, talking about our wins. If you want to talk, I mean, if you want to dive into the finding your why,
Yeah, that's a
um,
story.
yeah, because it really was like a bubble pop moment. Ever since we started this, it was always like I knew that I had to do something, and it was about finding that what you're really good about talking about is like that hopefulness and everything, and like what finding the, kind of that we talked about this before. It's like if you imagine hope as a feeling, you could fall into the pit traps of whenever you don't feel hopeful, then you're prone to be basically just bummed and depressed. Which I wouldn't say that I had that kind of problem, but it was definitely like I was experiencing a lot more anger and I was having trouble driving people to find positivity because I was just pissed off at everything. And I still, to be clear, I still am really pissed off about everything. But the big breakthrough for me, you shared an article with me that talked about 3.5%, and I've been posting up a lot of stuff on threads about 3.5%, including the article that it derives from, but it's basically the idea that no democracy movement has ever failed when at least 3.5% of the population can mobilize either in protest or in sustained protest. Um, that goes back to even the little things like calling your reps.
And you know what? You having this epiphany and being so inspired by this 3.5% concept. I too have shared this article, and it was interesting because a friend of mine, one of my walking buddies, said, well, yeah, but that's like 11 million people, and that's really difficult to sustain all at one time. And I'm like, hang on. It isn't all at one time, it's sustained over time. So, for instance, today is Sunday the 23rd, and the 5501 movement is inviting people every Sunday at noon to go to either your city hall, your capital, or to the capital of the country and protest. And
Right.
cumulatively, the 11 million makes a difference. So it isn't like 11 million people, which is the 3.5% coming together all
Right.
at the time. So I think you make a good point that 3.5% sustained over time is what's going to make the impact.
Yeah, and those constant driven protests are awesome because I feel like it's back to that thing that we talked about before where it's like they need to know that we're outside the door and that we're pissed.
Tell that
Um
tell that story again, because
yeah,
somebody but
right. Because I have a friend that doesn't vote, and his argument is I think protesting is more important than voting because they need to know that we're always outside the door. And said I disagree. I think voting is more important because I would rather change who's behind the door. And
yes.
that is the thing that we're really going to have to, put on. I've actually already been looking at hopefully getting into some local canvassing, especially once we get closer to the midterms, about just giving up like a Saturday to just go and try and canvass with some people to try and get Democratic voters out to the polls on our midterm, because that's going to be a
Why?
big part of the pushback.
So to go back to the why for you has become what? What is the why for you now?
Um, it's to be a part of that 3.5%. It's in the sense that I know one of the thing that was a part of that breakthrough was there is so much drive to push so much misinformation, and I really don't like whenever people are trying to tell me how I should think. So a big push of the things that like I've posted up a lot is like, don't let them convince you that these things are true. Don't let them persuade you into thinking that it's hopeless. Don't let them have control over like the way
The
that you think and
narrative,
feel.
they're trying to control the story. And when we say they,
Yes.
we're talking they who shall not be named, the current administration and the folks collaborating with the current administration.
Yeah.
Well, so that's awesome. And I think I want to go back to the 3.5%. Your why then became I want to be part of the 3.5% in the
Right.
way that makes sense to me. You are a hard worker. Your wife is a stay-at-home, well-educated stay-at-home mom. And
Mhm.
I don't know if that's a good way to say that or not.
I don't talk much about my wife. She has a master's degree in child psychology. She's an incredibly smart person. She's my favorite person. I say that's all the time. I'm like, you're my favorite person.
I think the point I'm trying to make badly is you're full-time employed, your wife full-time employed in the home,
Mhm.
caring for the home, running the home. You have
Oh
four
yeah.
children. You also have a very active social life. So making the time to be part of this 3.5% looks different for you than it does for me.
Right.
And
Makes
that's
sense. And it will probably look different for I would say everybody. I feel like
yes.
that's probably where a lot of people feel hopelessness too, is like, what am I supposed to do? I mean, it's and from I let's go back to the simple thing of like, I mean, here's 5 calls. Here's like these very small things that you can do that whenever you have time that I in my everybody's time is different. So I don't want to say that won't inconvenience your time, but it's just hopefully you can find time to do it because it won't take you a long time to do. Like protests can be hard to attend.
Protests can be hard. You may not be able to physically go. You may not have transportation. You may not fill in the blank
Right.
because of your job. You could lose your job in this
Right.
environment. The other thing that you brought up, and I've heard from folks, and I find it to be refreshing, they've put the 5 calls protocol into their day. They have an app, they pick their topic, they plug in their zip code, it tells them, here's the number. And they just part of their day, they call, they have this little script that they read. And sometimes they have gotten to know the people who answer the phone. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yes, Susie, thank you for calling again. But this is the consistency. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And also, I want to say we have to stop cannibalizing each other
Oh
by
yeah.
tearing down, you're not doing enough, you're not doing what I'm doing, you're not doing whatever. Every piece matters in that 3.5%.
Yeah, I saw that on that cannibalization. It's like I see posts on social media in some of the Democratic spheres where people are like, "Oh, I went to the local meeting with local Democrats, and they don't feel fired up because they feel like we should be like it should be bigger. Whereas a lot of the local ones are focusing on local elections. And
Right.
in my mind, that's where you start. I understand people's want to be a part of the bigger picture, but if we're pushing back on every front, even at the lower levels, that's how grassroots movements grow. It's a big
I
national movement.
and I would comment to what you say that if you're going looking for a feeling, then you're looking for comfort.
Right.
You be the feeling. You ignite the feeling in other people. If you're going to be comforted that, oh, everybody's all fired up, then I would suggest you may be going for the wrong reason.
Yeah, well, and I would say, I mean, it's not that people aren't fired up. It's that people are trying to affect change in the most direct ways that they can. Because it's impossible, I would say, for a local Democratic group to create some national level of change. It feels unrealistic. They're trying to generate the change that they can directly affect. And so that's why they're doing
But let's
local.
something you said in our first or second episode has stuck with me, and so I'm going to bring it back up. You had mentioned that you had shared something with some of your friends who are of similar age, and they're like, "Yeah, it's over. We're doomed. We've lost. Blah 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 blah."
Right.
My question or pushback, or if anybody your age, you're what, 38? I should know how old my child is, but
Yeah, no, 36. I think I'm 35 or 36.
okay, well, yeah,
We can
so
do the
bad.
math
I don't know
later.
how old you are.
Yeah, like, well, it's eventually it just all blurs together.
Somebody in their 35s, if you're watching and you're in this 35 age range, help me understand, where does this hopelessness come from? Because you have tons more energy, you have tons more ability to research, to affect change. Or is this something that's been kind of drilled into your head that you don't have this power?
Yeah, well, this goes back to, and I'm trying not to be this guy, but this goes back to where I feel like a lot of the bigger progressive movements have failed, and why so many people were almost driven to the right. I don't want to blame that on like leftist progressives, but that's where I feel like a lot of it probably comes from.
Right.
If you're being told by the people that influence you, and I don't mean politicians, I mean by the influencers that you follow or the news that you read, that, oh, they're all the same and it doesn't matter, then of course you're dissuaded to vote or feel like you can affect change.
Mm.
Because you're being convinced by people, oh, it doesn't matter. Both parties are the same. Nothing's ever going to change. It's always going to be this way. And I can't tell you whenever I stopped feeling that way, but I can say that I realized that at one point that there is no similarity between the two parties. Okay. The Democratic Party, they're not perfect, but they are trying to affect measurable change in incremental levels, right?
I would also push back in a positive way and say, the biggest difference that I have discovered is that I don't mean this the way it's going to come out, but I don't know another way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about way over here in crazy land to the left or to the right. People who adhere to a moderate democratic mentality care about the community. They
Yeah.
they want a healthy nation, not what benefits me. And the people that I talk to who are Republican, centrist Republicans, I guess, not over here in cray cray land, they really care about me. What's going to help me?
Me, my family. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It sounds mean, but it's like that lack of empathy aspect of it where it's like they're unable to associate their feelings
And I
with
need
other
to
people.
say this to be fair. I was one of those people. I was a
Mhm.
registered Republican. I was pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I was like, pay your own damn student loan off,
Yeah.
lazy welfare mom. I mean, God, I look back and just talk about Cringeville.
I
Ouch.
feel like I feel like everybody has probably has that phase. I can't think of a time whenever I directly had that. I could think of a time whenever I wasn't involved in politics, and it was the apathetic mindset of I'm taking care of me because I'm not informed enough to care about anybody else.
Well,
Not that that makes it better, but
it does seem overwhelming, and you've really led into the segue of I really would like to speak for a moment about the I'm not political. Because I have to tell you, that burns me up so bad.
yeah, I feel you. I've got a thing on it too
So
that's similar. So
yeah, I actually made a list, and I just want to go down this list
I
quick.
love lists.
We love lists, right? So, to be fair, I think these people who keep saying, "Oh, I'm not political. Can't we be friends? Can't we all just agree?" And, I respect your perspective, blah, blah. I do respect your perspective on tax. I do not respect your difference of opinion on the climate, on tax breaks for the bazillionaires. I do not respect.
Yeah,
We're talking about the difference between political values and moral values. So let me just
right,
put that. You don't want the uncomfortable conversation of somebody who hates immigrants or who disparages Black people or women. You don't want to have that difficult conversation. It's easier for you to feed your ego and feel morally superior to say, yeah, I don't talk about politics. Can't we all just be friends? Because no, we can't. I can't be your friend. I won't be your friend if you are supporting inhumane treatment or mindset.
right.
Okay, so let's just start there. The other thing is, you're oblivious if you don't realize that literally every single thing in your life is governed by politics. And the list I made is the wages you make at work, how much you get on your Social Security, your Medicaid, your Medicare, the veterans benefits you receive, the price you pay for gas, milk, or the almighty egg. And let's not forget the quality of those items are governed by
By politics.
the taxes you pay, the roads you drive on, the bridges you cross, all of your debt, the interest rates that you pay, your banking, the interest rate on your home, the student loans that you may have,
This is a long, long, long list.
the medicine you have access to, the health care you receive, the school your child goes to, what your child learns, what they eat, who teaches your child, the air you breathe, and the water you drink. Oh, and when you go to the bathroom, where that water goes and how
Yeah,
the water's managed. That's governed by politics. And I'm not even addressing who you love, who you can marry, who you can have children with.
I don't have children. Yeah.
Folks, for you to say that you're not political is ignorant.
I would love to live in a world where some of those things aren't politicized. I would love to live like it would be so nice. It would just be convenient if the quality of the water I drink wasn't a political matter. And we can
Because
agree
everybody
that
cares
it,
about the
right,
quality. Because of
right,
course I'm not going to dump chemical waste into the water.
exactly. And this is the thing that I agree with the people in the sense that it would be nice if we could just get along. But the problem is that there are people in politics that don't think we should regulate it. There are people in politics that want to dictate who you love and who you can marry and have children with. And it would just be so great if there wasn't that way. We could all agree, but the problem is that we can't. And so we can't pretend that we do.
When you remove yourself from politics, because I know people who didn't vote because they couldn't. I know that they couldn't. Either they were here or like me, I jumped through shit covered flaming hoops to vote because
Right.
traveling. And I found out that my vote wasn't accepted because they said that my signature on the outside, what they call a carrier envelope, didn't match the inside.
Voter thing and
I
like
understand
legitimate
that some
votes.
people couldn't vote.
Well,
I understand that some people, for whatever reasons, didn't vote. But the people who chose not to vote because they didn't care, that screams of privilege. I can guarantee you, first of all, you were Caucasian. Second of all, you didn't feel like any of these issues affected you.
right.
You didn't have a gay child. You didn't have, you maybe, I can't even fathom, what your reasoning is. But
That's definitely one side of it. I think the other side is the thing I was talking about too, though, where you have people that feel like it doesn't matter if I vote because what I want isn't, both parties don't want what I want. Is your alternative choice perfect? No, it's not. Right. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Harris was the perfect candidate.
no.
Okay. But I'm going to sit here and point out she was a metric shit ton better than Trump as a choice. So it's like, no, you're not right. They're not the same.
Yeah, so the whole not political. Yes, you're political, and by making a choice to not be political, you're screaming your privilege. And essentially, you are absconding from your responsibility to care for your community. So don't preach at me about your values or how much you love the world or pray for the world or God so loves the world, and you don't care enough to vote for the very things that support the values that you profess.
Exactly. The other ones that I see that I was going to say is probably closer to home for me is the ones where whenever they do start talking about their political opinions, and then you are like, well, it doesn't sound right because the facts are this. And they're like, well, this is just my opinion. I hate that one too. I'm like, okay, but your opinion is founded on false information.
No favorite, and I'm not making this up, and this is someone that you know, said to me before the election that she didn't want to vote for Harris because she wanted someone who had international experience and familiarity with the legislative system. You want me to repeat that?
Okay.
Or the ones who were like they didn't like her stance on Gaza.
How's that going? Yeah, you're right. I guess moving everybody out and building hotels is better.
I think this leads into perhaps the conversation about when you say that you're not political, what I think you're saying is, I don't care. I
Yeah,
don't care. I don't care what happens to you. I don't care what happens to that single mom
yeah.
trying to go back to school on welfare. I think it's just saying, fuck those people. It doesn't affect
It
me.
does affect me.
If anybody cares to follow me on Facebook, I'm still on Facebook. I post so much research. I spend so much time researching data and information, and I asked for stories about people who regret their votes, and I got real life stories about people who didn't think things were going to affect them. The sadisticness of voting for something that they thought would affect somebody else and not them.
Yeah. There's
Okay.
the story of the woman. She goes around, she keeps replying to all these people that are basically pointing out, like, hey, this is like massively illegal and this is not okay. And she's just always like, well, it's not as bad as you think it is. Like what it's like 3 or 4 posts. And then the last one, she's replying directly, I think, to like something I want to say like Elon posted or Trump posted, and she's like, I voted for you 3 times and my daughter just lost her job. She works for the government and like she just moved into a new home and like all this stuff, and now she lost her job. And yeah, I'm just uh uh like you were going around talking about none of this was a big deal, it's not gonna happen, only bad apples.
So let
Yeah.
me recap. We've talked about the why.
Yeah.
You know, when things get like crazy, I'm like, okay, let's go back. We talked about the why and our why. We also talked about not being political and the bullshit involved in that mentality. And so the other thing, wasn't there another thing we were going to talk about?
We've talked about it a little bit already, is action items. That's like the 5 calls, the resist bot. I really liked the one that you recently shared, the where is it? I'm sorry, I'm looking at the 50,501. The thing I like about this one on Threads is fantastic way that you can try and find
Yeah,
protests.
I can't say enough about threads. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and we're both on threads. The
Mhm.
difference between the three platforms has always been hugely different. The threads platform is amazing when it comes to finding out current news and also for democratic resistance.
Yeah.
It's been nothing but amazing. So we do list people to follow in the show notes.
Yes.
And the 501 is basically a hashtag that lists all of the current protests, where to go today. What day is the day that is the economic? That's Friday the 28th. Is that correct? You
Yeah,
know, I'm like,
economic boycott. You're right. The February 28th is talk of a February 28th economic blackout.
when we talk about economic boycotts, Friday, February 28th is a national boycott day. Now, I will say a perfect example of cannibalism is how people are infighting over whether that includes small business, black owned businesses, women owned businesses, whatever. Here's what I'm going to say. You do you, boo boo. If you feel led to only buy something, you have to buy something that day, and you're going to then buy small, buy from a small business. If you are not going to buy, then don't. But I'm not going to argue with you about. There's also another National Day of Protest, I think, coming up on March 4th.
That sounds right. I've heard that one.
Da.
Yeah, state capital is March 4th.
Okay, so all the state capitals March 4th. So Friday, February 28th is the National Day of Protest as an economic boycott. And then March the 4th is a National Day of Protest at your state capital.
Yeah, pushing for
So
state
be
capitals.
involved. If you can go and do this, I'm telling you, there have been protests in every state at every capital
Yeah.
since the current administration has been inaugurated, and we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep giving people action items. So protesting is one. Let me go through the list. Of course, we love lists.
I'm
Um,
all about lists.
right. So my calling is to disrupt information. I am disrupting misinformation. And if I had a dollar for every bullshit meme out there with bad information.
Oh, you just posted one. I think I told you that someone else had posted it about the oh, what's her name? Is it
Oh, the lady who was in charge of
yes. And they said, oh, she was arrested. And it was like, I remember whenever someone else had posted it, I was like,
so angry.
that seems kind of crazy. And then
Well, and that's the thing,
you go and
because
look it up.
so what you're talking about is the meme about a USDA inspector, and essentially what it said is, oh, she was arrested because she did this, that, and the other. I'm not even going to go
Oh
through
yeah.
that. But what I am going to tell you is that it is a perfect example of you have to research. I research things that I like. If I,
Yeah.
oh man, yeah, they screwed up by doing that. Oh, yeah, but is that too good to be true? Because you never know. Some of
Yeah.
the crazy stuff that comes out of the current administration's mouth, it could be real. But I don't push out
Sorry.
misinformation.
Yeah.
And that was one. The other one was Doge's or Doggy or what? I don't know how you
It's they say
Doggy.
it's supposed to be Doge, I'm pretty
I
sure.
like to say Doggy just because it's
Okay.
it's
Uh,
wrong.
okay. Fair enough.
Mispronouncing your name on purpose.
On
Uh,
purpose.
well,
It's
so
that
they have a thing,
extra form of resistance.
that's right, an extra form. So
Yeah.
Dogi has a website, and on one of the pages, it's called the Wall of Receipts. And I spent about an hour doing some research. And the important thing is it's smoke and mirrors. And like I say, if you want to follow me on Facebook, I think, what's my name on there? The Zinkster. I guess
Yeah.
I couldn't get my name years ago, so I just went with something easy to,
Right.
follow. But anyway, I'm going to go through this real quick because I think combating disinformation and misinformation is a form of resistance. If you can't protest, if you don't feel like you can make phone calls, do research. People send me stuff all the time behind the scenes. I have
Oh yeah.
people who work in places that they could get in trouble, I think, for talking about this stuff. And they share information and news with me. So the latest smoke and mirrors claim comes from canceling contracts. And I'm not even going to talk about where they said they saved 8 billion and it was only 8 million.
That one's been going around. I think
Yeah.
that one's probably, if you're following the news cycle, and I don't mean the legacy news, if you're involved in kind of the broader news cycle, I've already heard that one talked about several times. But sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yes, no, that's okay. But here's some more subtle examples of misinformation, and it's intended to be deceptive, I
Oh yeah.
believe. There are contracts called indefinite delivery vehicles, and these are contracts. So I make a contract with Aaron, you're a supplier, and I say this contract's good for 6 years, and the most I can spend with you over these 6 years is $600 million. And you're like, okay, we signed this contract. There were three of them with the gosh, who were they with? Oh, the USAID. And we're not even gonna go down that
Yeah.
cray road. This was about feeding children, doing medical research. Anyway, so there were three contracts. They were each worth 655 million, which is about $1,900,000.
Again, drop in the bucket. But go
Drop in
ahead.
the bucket, but we're talking about $1.9 billion. The contracts were signed in 2020. As of, let me double check, I don't want to lie. Oh, the contracts were signed in 2020, and as of last year, on all three contracts, the most that was spent was 55 million. Okay, so you with me here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Contracts with a total of 1.9 billion as a possible expense, but there was only 55 million over all three spent. But guess what? Doggy said, ooh, we saved you almost $2 billion.
Yeah.
Not true. And if you don't
It's
do the research, then
you don't
you
know.
you just are like, wow, they're doing a
Wow.
good job. Yay. Look, on the other side, the people that believe it, think about how easy their life is.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
my gosh, like I don't even have to think. I can just
What
take whatever
that
you
we talked
tell
we
me.
and we talked about that last time. Is like the it's such a huge problem that like you'll see something, not you, but people will see something on social media and they will just and that they agree with. And I mean this happens
Oh,
no matter what your leaning is. And
great.
you'll
Yeah.
be like, "Oh yes, that's awesome." And then you'll just share it. And then you just go on about your day.
And you're
Um
at peace. I mean, do you realize how peaceful these
yeah,
people being the
there's
people who are embracing? I mean, honestly, you had commented on that woman who kept going around saying, "Oh, everything's fine."
maybe things not fun.
Yes. Going back to being political. There are some aspects of the Republican platform that I do agree with.
I'm glad you mentioned that. This was one of those things where if Doge was just auditing, bringing that information back to the president, and then president was going to Congress and saying, "Hey, here's some of the stuff that we found in our audit. There is corruption, blah blah blah," and then let Congress reconvene and vote and create committees and look into it themselves and vote through. That would be a totally different thing than Trump
That's
saying,
not
"I am the federal government. I control these things. I'm putting Elon Musk in charge." Elon Musk going in and saying, "All of you are fired. Get out." The methods at which they're doing it is by and large the biggest problem.
If I recall correctly, we spoke earlier in this episode and previous episodes about your friend who doesn't vote but believes in protesting, who also thinks we should tear it all down, right?
Well, they're two different people. It's okay.
But that's good. I mean, I'm glad you're surrounded. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got people who don't agree with my thinking anyway,
Right.
as well. So I don't disagree that there should be audits. But that's what the inspector generals were for. And if somebody would have taken a moment to research what the inspector generals have done over the past few years, they would have discovered that they are consistently finding waste, fraud, and abuse. They find these things, they handle these things. I think the issue is, and this is the sad fact, and it always happens with bullies, and back to what we said, fast beats smart,
Right.
and then smart has to catch up and um figure out how to win. The current administration and the associated minions are so visible and so braggarty, like, oh, look at what we're doing, that the average American who has taken democracy for granted thinks, oh, they're finally doing something.
Oh yes. That woman whose daughter lost her job, one of the posts that she posted on was someone talking about how Doge is at the IRS. And her comment was, "Well, they're only in there looking for bad actors, right? They're like people aren't going to lose their jobs unless they're committing crimes." And then her daughter loses her
So if
job.
you don't follow Politics Girl, I think she's Politics Girl on YouTube, and she may be the Politics Girl on Threads. I watched a video that she had done about this whole auditing process. Let's apply some critical thinking skills here. If it
Yeah.
was above board, wouldn't you take in accountants instead of programmers?
right?
If it was above board, wouldn't you start with the military budget, which is the largest budget? And oh, wait, they failed the last 7 audits.
Yeah,
But no,
yeah,
you go into the very organizations that have either fined you, penalized you, or investigating you because you're not following the law.
yeah. And it's just done so incorrectly, I think. And that's the other thing is I just they they're doing it wrong. I think that's why I say that. If they were doing it the right way, there would be a lot less concern if it was being done correctly.
Correct. And I think let's go back to why we're protesting, why we're resisting. This is all unconstitutional.
Oh yeah.
100%. And I just don't see enough outrage about that. And I certainly don't see the party of law and order being upset about that.
Actually, I think some of them have come out and said we don't see the problem.
Now, I will say when we get to the wins, we've got a lot more Republicans who are speaking up and saying, yeah, no, you got to follow the
Yes.
law. So I don't want to run too long. So let's recap real quick. So we want anyone who's watching this to discover your why. For us, the why is we want to be part of the 3.5%. The theory behind 3.5% is any authoritarian or fascist regime did not succeed if 3.5% of the population consistently resisted. In the United States, 3.5% is about 11.3 million, I think, something like that. So consistent resistance is what's going to make this work. What I want to work, I mean, in a perfect world, I would love to see the person I voted for in office. That's not going to happen because
Right.
whether rigged or not, he won the election. He's got to follow the law. That's what I want. I want you to follow the Constitution, the rule of law. And so that's our why. The second thing is if you think you're not political, you are deceiving yourself and you're doing a disservice to your family, your friends, and your community. And
Yes.
then the third thing is what we just finished talking about was action items. You
Yep.
know, what can you do? So we talked about peaceful protest, we talked about economic pressure, we talked about using fivecalls.org to contact your representative.
Yeah.
The other thing is building community resilience. I don't know why it is not more popularly talked about, but Biden and Harris, the last day in office, released a document called National Resilience Strategy. We are going to have that linked in our show notes. And it is a 4-pillar plan that directly combats the Project 2025. Harris last night won an award, and her acceptance speech was so eloquent. And she said, we the people are what is going to win when we come together. Okay, so that was the summary. And then I'm going to do the wins. I'm not doing all the wins because I sent you what, 25?
I think it went up to 27 by the time we.
I can read through these, but were there any that stuck out for you?
So the big one is the one that I told you that I'd been following on a lot of my influencers were following it, and some of the people that I actually follow got to speak directly to, or yeah, I guess during it. So Bernie Sanders is doing the Fight Against the Oligarchy tour. He's just basically going around. And the reason I think I like it is because he's not just talking to legacy media. He is talking to what I would call modern media at this point, where
Mhm.
he's getting up with like streamers and YouTubers and social media influencers, and
And he's going in predominantly red states.
yes. But this is the thing that I think makes it such a substantial move on his part. I mean, I don't think there's no way Bernie's gonna run for president again. But I think it's about getting it out there. And
So the
so
win, so this is in the win column because he is demonstrating what we're asking everyone to do is to resist in public. Some of the other wins, I'm just going to read some of these. More Republican senators are finally speaking out, including Curtis from Utah, Murowski from Arkansas, Cassidy from Louisiana, Britt from Alabama, Moran from Kansas, Bud from North Carolina, and Collins from What's Maine?
Collins. Collins is from Maine, yes.
Okay. Um, let's see. Republican Chief Justice Elizabeth Clement is stepping down, and Gretchen Whitmer gets to fill that vacancy. I'm
Mhm.
not going to go through all these, but there are Democrats that are winning previously held Republican seats in local elections, which is important. I'm just going to say it and then maybe we'll fix it if we have to. I am rejoicing in some of these Republicans who are having town halls and they're just getting raked over this.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
there
No,
was
I think that you're exactly right. I think because I think it's demonstrating to them, and maybe, and I don't, maybe they just because they were voted in, they just had this whole idea that everything that they're doing is fine, and so it's good for constituents coming and be like,
well, it is, and I've been
I'm
watching Republicans.
unhappy.
The administration lost a Supreme Court case on firing a watchdog. The Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled against a Republican attempt to get rid of alternate voting facilities.
Oh, there's the one that's the you actually have on here that I know I saw is that there's been a significant loss in support and favorability. He can go on stage as much as he wants and say, "Oh, I'm so popular and everybody loves me," but the polls aren't reflecting that right
Well,
now.
I think, if I understand correctly, he's at the lowest that any president has been since they started measuring.
No surprise.
No, no surprise. There's a list of wins. I'm going to post
Yeah,
them
so
in
many.
there's
Yeah,
27.
and I'm trying to go through and see if
I
there was because
know.
I thought there was another one that
I
I
have
had
to wonder
mentioned
if
to
it would be
you.
better if we just read them than people watching us trying to pick out
I
which
know. I
matters.
know, I know.
Oh, God.
I guess the biggest takeaway though is that I think people probably spend a lot of time, and we talk about this every time. You probably spend a lot of time, and if you're watching, people talk about stuff, especially people that are angry, you're only seeing the bad things that are happening,
Yeah.
and you're missing out on the fact that there are good things that are happening,
I have been
to
following,
push back on the bad.
yeah, I've been following a young woman on Threads called Ariella Elm, and I will continue to support her. She lists 3 wins every day and invites people to list wins that are in their neighborhood.
Right.
So, 2 other things that I want to mention. One is a federal judge on Friday, just this last Friday, largely blocked sweeping executive orders regarding the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. And
Right.
I will have a link to that story. Target, for those of you who know, Target dropped their DEI programs,
Oh
diversity,
yes,
equity,
that's
and
what's the other
inclusion.
one.
Yeah, and they reported an 8.6 decrease in foot traffic, but Costco, which has kept their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs going,
Yeah.
reported a 5.8 increase in foot traffic. You might think, well, so what, who cares? But I will tell you, this is direct evidence of how resistance is impacting businesses who will then pay attention to what the public wants.
Right. That's the we live in a capital. You may not. It's not perfect, but we do live in a capitalist society,
Right.
and a lot of people tend to vote with their wallet, and
Yeah.
so it does demonstrate. I feel like overall it demonstrates
And my
the
personal, my
mentality
two,
of people.
the last 2 wins that I want to talk about, there may be some you want to talk about, is the USPS has said, no, you will not be taking over. And they're going to be fighting it tooth and nail. And so while I'm not particularly thrilled all the time with USPS service, I'm less thrilled with the idea of the current administration being in charge or privatizing it, because that we could have a whole show about why that.
Yeah, well, it's the biggest. I don't want to dive too deep on that. I have been to Afghanistan, as you know, and I haven't talked much about my military service. But whenever you're in Afghanistan, somebody can send me a FedEx box, but FedEx is not the one delivering that to me. It's the USPS, right?
Right.
They get those in, and then they bring them to us. But it's just the whole thing of like I I feel like most people don't realize that like just how much the USPS like just how much they do in terms of like getting packages.
I agree. And so, anyway, the USPS is pushing back, and that's, I think, a big deal. The other thing was when the Democratic mayor of Maine said that
We'll
she
see you
was
in court.
in court, threatening to withhold federal funding, and she's like, No, that's unconstitutional. Again, we have to keep saying this. You're behaving illegally. You're not following the Constitution.
And don't let people that, if for those of you that are like me and you get into debates or discussions with people like this, don't let them obfuscate off of that, because they're going to try and be like, oh well, a lot of people don't know what the Constitution said. No. Okay, I
The
mean, you
fact that
can.
I don't know what the law is doesn't mean that it's okay for you to break it.
Yeah, so exactly that. The only other win that I wanted to talk about was how much the media is kind of tearing Doge apart for saying, "Oh, we saved this much money," and then like the fact checkers are like, no, it was a lot less than
Yeah,
that." But those guys are so brilliant, Mom.
well, yeah, I feel really good about having a 20-year-old who doesn't understand old programming and who certainly is not an accountant or a bookkeeper handling all this. So
I know we can go on forever. The one that amuses me is, imagine you're a guy who's been doing your job for 20 years. You're probably getting ready to come up on your retirement. You've been a part of the agency you work for forever. And here comes some 20-year-old kid and he walks in and he's like, "Yeah, actually, you don't know what you're doing." Like, okay. No wonder they're resigning. Yeah.
I want to say this. If you believe that a billionaire with questionable ties to Russia and China who abuses ketamine, if you think that billionaire and a felon millionaire care one whit about you, your family, your livelihood, your health, your welfare, your mental health, your family's mental health, your income, your future, you are delusional.
Yeah.
You are brainwashed if you believe that. Okay. And this person wants to set himself up as in his own words, king.
Yeah.
And
He was joking. That's not something we joke about here. Yeah, I would say you need to do some serious self reflection if you think that.
well, I don't know if self-reflection is going to help. I mean, and again, if you believe those things, you're definitely not our target market. So
Yeah, fair. That's true. Yeah.
no, we have listed all the things. We've talked about all the things. I don't know what closing comments I would like to make. So any closing comments you would like to make?
I have been trying to continue to spread around that 3.5%. So I keep harping back on that. Try to be a part of
I'll have a link to
3.5%.
that in the
So
show description
yeah.
up near the top because we have a ton of links and a lot of information. 19 subscribers.
Hey. Yeah, no, I'm glad that people are getting, I'm glad that people are here and people are I
Yeah,
know we always know there's people with us, but it's cool to see it on I guess direct scale. So
right. Right. Okay. Well, until we get together again, my friends, bye for now.